The Crystal Silence, Part 1. The Invitation. The embossed card arrived on a Tuesday morning, cream-colored with gold lettering that caught the light like a promise or a threat. You are cordially invited to celebrate Marcus Chen's promotion to senior partner at Hawthorne and Associates, Saturday, 7 p.m. Les Bernardines. Elena held it between her fingers, feeling the weight of expensive cardstock, the kind that announced, "We have arrived, and you have not." Her brother, Marcus, golden child, Harvard Law, corner office before 40. The son who had done everything right, while she had done everything wrong, hadn't she? That's what 20 years of family dinners had taught her. 20 years of being the cautionary tale, the disappointing daughter, the one they spoke about in hushed tones when they thought she couldn't hear. "Are you going?" Her roommate Jen peered over her shoulder at the invitation. "Of course she's going, because you're a glutton for punishment." Elena smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "They're my family. Family doesn't treat you like that." But they did. They always had. Ever since she'd dropped out of medical school 15 years ago, ever since she'd chosen that art nonsense over a real career, ever since she'd failed to marry well, to produce grandchildren, to become anything they could brag about at their country club. She set the invitation on her desk, next to the manila folder she'd been carrying with her for 3 weeks now, the folder that changed everything, the folder they didn't know about. Not yet. Part 2. The Grand Arrival. Les Bernardines gleamed like a jewel box on Saturday evening. Elena stood outside for a moment, watching well-dressed patrons glide through the entrance, their laughter crystalline and confident. She wore the one good dress she owned, black, simple, elegant in its restraint. She'd learned long ago not to compete with her mother's designer labels or her sister-in-law's statement pieces. Better to be invisible than to be mocked for trying. She touched the folder in her oversized purse. Still there. Still real. The maitre d' recognized the Chen name immediately, all deference and practiced warmth. He led her through the restaurant, past tables where power brokers cut into perfect steaks and old money sipped wine that cost more than her monthly rent. They were already seated at the private corner table, all of them. Her mother, Patricia Chen, in emerald silk that matched her jade necklace. Her father, Robert, silver-haired and stern-faced, the retired surgeon who'd built an empire of expectations. Marcus, the golden boy himself, his arm around his wife Vanessa, who looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine spread. Probably had, actually. Her younger sister, Diana, pregnant and glowing, her husband Trevor's hand protective on her shoulder. And then there was the empty chair, Elena's chair, set slightly farther from the table than the others, as if even the seating arrangement needed to communicate her outsider status. "Elena?" Her mother's voice was cool, appraising. "You came." As if I might not. As if they half hoped I wouldn't. "Of course, Mother, I wouldn't miss Marcus's big night." She bent to kiss her brother's cheek. He accepted it with the graciousness of a prince receiving tribute from a peasant. "Sis, good to see you. What are you doing these days? Still with that gallery?" The question was a dart, expertly thrown. He knew she wasn't with the gallery anymore. He knew she'd been laid off 6 months ago. But Marcus never wasted an opportunity to remind everyone of her failures. "I'm between positions at the moment," Elena said, sliding into her chair. She placed her purse carefully beside her feet, the folder inside pressing against her ankle like a secret heartbeat. "Still?" Her father's disappointment could frost glass. "Elena, you're 38 years old. When are you going to find something stable, something with a future?" "Robert, not tonight." Her mother's interjection wasn't protective, it was tactical. "Don't embarrass us in public. Save it for home." The sommelier appeared with champagne, and glasses were filled, toasts were made. To Marcus, to success, to the Chen family legacy. Elena raised her glass with the others, the crystal cold against her palm, and drank to her own invisibility. Part 3. They ordered, prefix of course, Marcus's treat, his generosity announced loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. The first course arrived, beautiful and delicate, and with it came the conversation Elena had been dreading. "So, Elena," Vanessa began, her voice honey-sweet and snake-cold, "Marcus tells me you've been doing some freelance work. That must be so flexible." Flexible, code for unstable, unreliable, unsuccessful. "I've been taking on various projects, yes." "That's nice." Not everyone is cut out for the corporate world, are they? Some people are just more creative types, more free-spirited. Diana laughed, her hand on her belly. "Remember when Elena wanted to be a painter? God, those paintings, they were so abstract. They were terrible," Marcus said, grinning. "Remember that one she did of Mom? Looked like a Picasso had a fight with a kindergartner?" The table erupted in laughter. Even her mother smiled, though she'd tried to hide it behind her napkin. Elena felt the familiar burn in her chest, the humiliation that had become as comfortable as an old sweater. "I was 22, she said quietly. "And now you're 38, her father interjected. "Still trying to find yourself. Most people have found themselves by now, Elena. Most people have built something." "I have built something." "What? A resume full of gaps and dead ends?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, expansive, confident. He was enjoying this. They all were. "Look, sis, I say this because I love you. You need to get real. The artsy thing, the bohemian thing, it's fine when you're young, but you're not young anymore. You need security, stability, a real job." "What? Medicine?" Elena's voice had an edge now. "We all know how well that worked out." Her mother's face went cold. "We don't discuss that." "Why not? It's true. I dropped out of medical school because I was miserable, because I was drowning, because I couldn't be what you wanted me to be." "You could have tried harder," her father said. "You could have pushed through, but you quit. You've always been a quitter, Elena." The words hit like a slap. Around them, other diners laughed and chatted, oblivious to the small destruction happening at the Chen family table. The second course arrived, perfectly seared scallops, and Elena stared at her plate, her appetite gone. Part 4. The escalation. The meal continued, and with each course, the barbs grew sharper. They'd had wine now, several glasses, and alcohol made them bold, cruel, honest in the worst ways. "Do you remember Elena's boyfriend?" Diana said suddenly, laughing. "The one with the band? What was his name?" "Jake," Elena said quietly. "Jake!" Diana slapped the table. "Oh my God, Jake! He was gonna be a rock star, remember? He was gonna make it big, and Elena was gonna be this rock star's girlfriend living the glamorous life." "He works in insurance now," Vanessa said. She'd clearly done her research. "In Cleveland, married, 3 kids." "So it worked out for him," Marcus observed. "He got real, grew up, became an adult." "Unlike some people," Trevor added, emboldened by his in-laws' cruelty. Elena felt something crack inside her, something that had been bending for years, decades, finally reaching its breaking point. She reached down and touched her purse, felt the folder inside. Not yet. "Wait. I just worry about you, darling." Her mother's voice was softer now, but no less devastating. "You have no stability, no partner, no children, no career. What do you have, Elena? What have you built in all these years?" "I have my dignity," Elena said. Marcus snorted. "Dignity doesn't pay the bills. Neither does being a decent human being, apparently." The table went quiet. Elena never fought back. Elena never challenged them. She was the punching bag, the cautionary tale, the acceptable target. Her defiance, however mild, was unprecedented. "Careful," her father warned. "Remember whose celebration this is." "Oh, I remember. I remember exactly whose celebration this is. Marcus, the golden child. Marcus who has everything. Marcus who never fails." Because I work hard, Marcus said. Because I don't give up when things get difficult. Because I made good choices. Right. Good choices. Elena's voice was steady now, cold. Is that what we're calling it? Something flickered in Marcus's eyes. Uncertainty? Fear? Vanessa placed her hand on his arm, proprietary, protective. Elena, I think maybe you've had too much wine. You're being uncharacteristically hostile. Am I? Am I being hostile? Because I thought I was just participating in the family tradition, the one where we all gather round and tear me apart for entertainment. That's not what this is, her mother said sharply. Isn't it? Isn't that exactly what this is? Every family dinner, every holiday, every phone call, let's talk about Elena's failures. Let's remind Elena that she's not good enough. Let's make sure Elena knows her place. Your place is what you've made it. You chose this path. You chose to be this. This what, Dad? Say it. You want to say it so badly. What am I? A disappointment? A failure? An embarrassment? The nearby tables had gone quiet now. People were pretending not to listen while hanging on every word. The Chen family drama, playing out under crystal chandeliers and recessed lighting, was better than theater. Diana's eyes were wide. Elena, stop, please, you're making a scene. Good. Maybe it's time we had a scene. Maybe it's time someone said what we all really think. You all sit here so smug, so satisfied with yourselves, perfect Marcus, perfect Diana, perfect parents with your perfect grandchildren and your perfect lives. And you're jealous, Vanessa said, her voice cutting. That's what this is really about. You're jealous because Marcus succeeded and you failed. Because Diana has a family and you don't. Because we have meaning in our lives and you're just drifting. Part 5, The Breaking Point. Elena stood up. Her legs were shaking, but her voice was steady. You want to know what I've been doing for the last 6 months? Since I lost my job? Since I became even more of a disappointment than usual? Elena, sit down, her mother hissed. People are staring. Let them stare. Let them all stare. I've been researching. I've been digging. I've been finding out the truth about this perfect family of ours. Marcus's face went pale. What are you talking about? I'm talking about secrets. I'm talking about lies. I'm talking about the fact that this entire evening, this entire celebration is built on a foundation of fraud. The word hung in the air like smoke. Elena reached into her purse and pulled out the folder. It felt heavier than it should, weighted with revelation and revenge. What is that? Her father demanded. This, Elena said, opening the folder, is 3 months of investigation. This is bank records, email printouts, witness statements, and photographic evidence. Evidence of what? Vanessa's voice was shrill now. Elena looked at Marcus, her golden brother, her successful, perfect, accomplished brother. Tell them, Marcus. Tell them about Hawthorne and Associates. Tell them about your promotion. I don't know what you're... Tell them about the embezzlement. Tell them about the client funds you've been skimming for the past 2 years. Tell them about the offshore accounts. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the nearby tables had stopped pretending to ignore them. Forks hung suspended halfway to mouths. Conversations died mid-sentence. Marcus's face had gone from pale to gray. You're insane. Am I? Am I insane, or am I the only one who saw what you were doing? The only one who noticed the new car, the new house, the designer suits on a senior associate's salary? The only one who wondered how you could afford all of this? Elena's voice grew stronger. I'm many things, Marcus. A failure, a disappointment, a cautionary tale. But I'm not stupid, and I'm not blind. This is ridiculous, Vanessa said, but her voice lacked conviction. Elena pulled out papers, spreading them on the table between the half-eaten entrees and the wine glasses. Count numbers, transactions, dates, amounts. It's all here. $2.3 million, Marcus. That's how much you've stolen from your firm's clients. This is a lie, Marcus said, but he was sweating now. She's making this up. She's jealous and I have proof. Elena's voice cut through his protestations. I have everything, and I've already made copies. Multiple copies. One for the DA's office, one for the state bar, one for Hawthorne and Associates, and one for each of you. She pulled out 5 envelopes, each one sealed, each one addressed to a different family member. She placed them on the table like playing cards, a winning hand. What are you doing? Her mother whispered. Elena, what are you doing? I'm telling the truth. Finally, after years of being the family disappointment, after years of being told I'm not good enough, I'm showing you who's really failed, who's really the embarrassment. Marcus lurched to his feet, reaching for the papers, but Elena pulled them away. Don't. It won't help. Like I said, there are copies. Destroying these won't destroy the truth. Why? Marcus's voice was raw. Why would you do this? I'm your brother. You're right. You're my brother. And every time I've needed you, every time I've been struggling, every time I've been drowning, you've kicked me while I was down. You've used me as a punchline. You've made my pain your entertainment. Elena's eyes were dry. No tears. She was beyond tears. So yes, I investigated you. And when I found out what you'd been doing, I had a choice. I could turn you in immediately, or I could wait. I could come to this dinner. I could sit through one more round of humiliation. I could let you all have your fun one last time. Elena, please. Her mother's face was crumpling. He's your brother. He's family. Family. Elena laughed, and it was a bitter sound. You want to talk about family? You want to talk about loyalty? Where was my family when I needed help after I lost my job? Where was my family when I was struggling with depression? Where was my family when I was trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted from life? Silence. You weren't there. Any of you. You were too busy judging me, mocking me, using me as an example of what not to be. So don't talk to me about family. Don't talk to me about loyalty. Diana was crying now, her hands on her pregnant belly. What happens now? What's going to happen to Marcus? It depends. Elena looked at her brother. I haven't sent the evidence yet. The envelopes to the DA, the bar association, the firm. They're sitting in my apartment. Ready to mail, but not mailed. What do you want? Marcus's voice was hoarse. Is this blackmail? I don't want your money, Marcus. I don't want anything from you except one thing. Recognition. Truth. I want you to admit right here, right now, in front of everyone, what you did. I want you to admit that I am not the failure in this family. I want you to admit that you're not perfect, that you're not better than me. Elena, her father started. I can, and I will, unless Marcus tells the truth. Marcus sat down heavily, his face in his hands. Vanessa had moved away from him, her expression horrified, calculating, already distancing herself from the sinking ship. Marcus's voice was muffled. I did it. I took the money. I thought I could make it back. I thought I could fix it before anyone noticed. Why? Diana asked, her voice small. Because I was drowning in debt. Because Vanessa wanted the house in the Hamptons, the car, the lifestyle. Because I couldn't admit that I wasn't as successful as I pretended to be. Because I couldn't be the golden child anymore without the confession hung in the air, ugly and true. And me? Elena said softly. Marcus looked up, his eyes red. You scared me. You always scared me. What? You had the courage to quit, to walk away from medicine, from mom and dad's expectations. You chose your own path, even though it was hard, even though they hated you for it. And I didn't have that courage. I stayed. I performed. I became what they wanted.
And I hated every minute of it. And I hated you for being brave enough to leave. The table was silent. I could hear the restaurant around them, the clink of silverware, the murmur of conversation, the soft jazz playing overhead. Normal sounds from a normal world that felt very far away. So you made me the villain? Elena said. You made me the cautionary tale so you could feel better about your own choices? We all did, Diana said quietly. She was looking at her sister now, really looking at her, maybe for the first time in years. We all used you. We made you the failure, so we could be the successes. And I'm sorry. God, Elena, I'm so sorry. Elena sat back down. She felt tired suddenly, exhausted from carrying this weight for so long. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to destroy you, Marcus. I just wanted you to see me, to really see me. Not the disappointment, not the failure, me. Her mother was crying now, silent tears running down her carefully made-up face. What have we done? What have we done to you? You made me strong, Elena said. You made me resilient. You made me someone who doesn't need your approval anymore. Because I investigated Marcus on my own. I learned financial forensics. I taught myself to read bank statements and follow money trails. I spent 6 months becoming an expert in something you all said I was too stupid, too scattered, too artistic to understand. And I did it. I did it better than any of you could have. Robert Chen looked at his daughter, and for the first time, she saw something new in his eyes. Not disappointment, not disdain, respect. Maybe even fear.
What are you going to do with the evidence? He asked. Elena looked at the folder, at the papers that could destroy her brother's life, end his career, possibly send him to prison. She thought about revenge, about justice, about all the years of humiliation and pain. I don't know, she said honestly. I haven't decided, but I'll tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to let you make me feel small anymore. I'm not going to let you use me as your punching bag. I'm not going to be your cautionary tale. She stood up again, gathering her purse, leaving the folder on the table. Elena, wait. Marcus reached for her hand. Please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you are. Now. But you weren't sorry last week. You weren't sorry last month. You weren't sorry for the past 15 years when you made my life hell. What can I do? Elena looked at him, this man who was her brother, who had tormented her, who had revealed himself to be just as broken and scared as she'd ever been. You can turn yourself in, she said. You can confess to the firm before I send the evidence. You can take responsibility for what you've done. You can start rebuilding your life with truth instead of lies. That's what you can do. They'll destroy me. Maybe. Or maybe they'll respect you for being honest, for being brave, for doing what I did 15 years ago. Choosing truth over performance. Choosing yourself over their expectations. Part 8. The Choice. The chandeliers sparkled overhead. The restaurant hummed with life and laughter. At the Chan family table, everything had changed. I want to understand, Vanessa said. And there was something genuine in her voice now. Something human beneath the polished exterior. How did you figure it out? How did you know? Elena smiled, a real smile this time. I didn't have a job. I had time. And I started noticing things. Little things. A watch Marcus wore that cost more than my yearly income. Receipts left carelessly on Mom and Dad's counter when I was visiting. Overheard phone conversations. And then I started wondering, how? How was he affording all of this? So I looked. I learned. I investigated. And I found the truth. You could work for the FBI, or a law firm, or, God, Elena, you have skills, real skills. I always had skills. You just never looked close enough to see them. Patricia Chen reached across the table, her jewelry glittering, her hand shaking. Let me ask you something. What do you want from us? Really want? Elena considered the question. What did she want? Revenge? Vindication? An apology? I want you to see me, she said finally. Not as the failure, not as the disappointment, just as Elena, your daughter, your sister, a person who made different choices but is still worthy of respect, of love. And if we do that, her father asked, if we really see you, really respect you, what happens to the evidence? That depends on Marcus. If he turns himself in, if he makes this right, then maybe I won't send it. Maybe I'll give him a chance to fix his mistakes the right way. This brother who had tormented her, who had hidden behind her failures to mask his own. And if I don't turn myself in, then I'll do it for you. And you won't just lose your career, Marcus. You'll lose your freedom. Because I'm not going to protect you anymore. I'm not going to be the sacrifice that keeps this family's perfect image intact. That's fair, he said quietly. The waiter appeared, uncertain, holding a dessert menu. The situation was clearly unusual, clearly tense, but he was professional. Shall I bring the dessert course? Elena looked at her family, her broken, flawed, human family. No, she said. I think we're done here. She picked up the folder, leaving the envelopes on the table. Each family member looked at their envelope like it was a bomb, a Pandora's box they were afraid to open. Those are for you. Read them or don't. Believe me or don't. But know this, I'm not lying. I'm not exaggerating. Everything in there is true, and you need to decide what you're going to do about it. As a family. Part 9. The Exit. Elena walked through Les Bernardins with her head high, her shoulders back, her purse over her shoulder. She felt lighter than she had in years, as if she'd been carrying stones in her pockets and had finally emptied them out. Behind her, she heard her mother call out, "Elena? Wait." She paused at the door, looking back. Patricia Ten was standing now, her napkin crumpled in her hand, her makeup streaked with tears. "Please," her mother said, "don't leave like this. Stay. Let's talk. Really talk." "I've been trying to talk for 15 years, Mother. You weren't listening." "We're listening now." Elena looked at them. Her whole family, frozen in tableau at their fancy restaurant table. Marcus, pale and shaking. Vanessa, shocked into silence. Diana crying. Trevor, confused. Her father looking older than she'd ever seen him. Her mother reaching out. "Are you?" Elena asked. "Are you really listening? Or are you just scared? Scared of what I might do? Scared of what I might reveal? Scared that the perfect Chen family image might be shattered?" "Both," her mother admitted. "I'm scared. But I'm also ashamed of how we've treated you, of how blind we've been." It was the closest to an apology Elena had ever received from Patricia Chen. "If you want to talk, then really talk. Not at me, not about me, with me, as equals, as family. Can you do that?" Her mother looked at Robert, at Marcus, at Diana. Some silent communication passed between them, some acknowledgement of guilt, of failure, of the need for change. "We can try," Patricia said. "Will you let us try?" Elena stood in the doorway, caught between two worlds. Behind her was the night, the city, the freedom of walking away and never looking back. In front of her was her family, broken and exposed, but maybe, just maybe, ready to heal. Part 10. The Beginning. She walked back to the table, not all the way. She stopped a few feet away, maintaining distance, maintaining boundaries. "Here's what's going to happen," Elena said. "Marcus, you're going to contact Hawthorne and Associates first thing Monday morning. You're going to confess. You're going to work with them to make restitution. You're going to take full responsibility." "Elena, I'm not finished. Mom, Dad, you're going to stop comparing me to Marcus, to Diana, to your fantasy of who you wanted me to be. You're going to accept that I made different choices, and those choices don't make me a failure. Sweetheart, I'm still not finished. Diana, You're going to stop using me as a punchline. You're going to stop apologizing for me to your friends. You're going to stand up for me when other people criticize me. Can you do that?" Diana nodded, her hands still on her belly, protecting her unborn child from the chaos swirling around them. "And all of you are going to respect that I don't need saving. I don't need fixing. I don't need to become someone else to earn your love. I'm enough exactly as I am. Do you understand?" "Yes," her mother whispered. "Yes," Diana said. Marcus just nodded, too broken for words. Her father cleared his throat. "Elena, I was wrong. About many things, but mostly about you. I thought strength looked like certainty, like success, like perfection. I didn't understand that real strength looks like what you just did. Standing up for yourself, demanding respect, refusing to be diminished." It was more than he'd said to her in years. More honesty, more vulnerability, more real emotion. "Thank you," Elena said simply. "Will you stay?" her mother asked. "Please, just for a few more minutes? We can skip dessert. We can just talk?" Elena looked at the folder in her hands. All that power, all that potential for destruction. She'd thought revenge would feel sweet, but it didn't. It felt hollow. What she wanted wasn't vengeance. It was something simpler and infinitely more complicated. She wanted to be seen, to be known, to be loved for who she was, not who they wished her to be. "I'll stay," she said, pulling out her chair. "But we're going to establish some ground rules first." And they did. For the next hour, under the crystal chandeliers of Les Bernardinais, the Chen family had the first honest conversation they'd had in decades. There were tears, there were recriminations, there were admissions of guilt and requests for forgiveness. Elena laid out her boundaries. No more jokes at her expense. No more comparisons. No more dismissing her choices or her life. She would update them on her life when and if she chose to, and they would respond with support, not judgment. Marcus agreed to turn himself in, though Elena could see the terror in his eyes. Vanessa, interestingly, stood by him. "We'll get through this," she said, and Elena glimpsed something real in her sister-in-law for the first time. Not perfection, humanity. Diana apologized, really apologized, for years of casual cruelty. "I didn't think about how it felt," she said. "I didn't think about you as a real person with real feelings. You were just Elena, the unsuccessful one, and that made me feel better about myself." "I know," Elena said. "That's why I let you do it, because I thought if I could be the failure, maybe the rest of you could be happy. But I can't do that anymore. I can't sacrifice myself for your comfort." Part 11. The Revelation. As they prepared to leave, her father pulled Elena aside. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. "Something I've never told anyone." They stood by the coat check, away from the others. "When I was a resident, I made a mistake. A bad one. A patient died because I misread a chart. I was exhausted, overworked, and I made a human error. But it cost someone their life." Elena stared at him, this man she'd worshipped and feared in equal measure. "I almost quit medicine. I almost walked away. But your mother convinced me to stay, to push through, to not let one mistake define me. And I did. I became successful, I became respected, but I never forgot that moment, that choice. And when you quit medical school," his voice broke. "When you quit, all I could see was my own cowardice. You had the courage to leave when you were unhappy, and I hated you for it because I never had that courage. Dad, let me finish. I pushed you so hard because I was trying to push away my own regrets. I made you the failure because I couldn't admit my own failures. And I'm sorry. God, Elena, I'm so sorry." Elena felt something crack open in her chest, some old wound finally releasing its poison. "You should have told me. You should have been honest." "I know. I was afraid. Of looking weak, of not being the perfect surgeon, the perfect father, and that fear made me cruel to you." They stood together in silence, father and daughter, both flawed, both human, both finally seeing each other clearly. "I forgive you," Elena said, But that doesn't mean things go back to the way they were. We start over, fresh, honest. Deal, he said, and held out his hand. She shook it, feeling the surgeon's grip, strong and steady, and no longer terrifying. Part 12. The New Beginning. Outside Les Bernardins, the New York night was alive with possibility. Taxis rushed past, horns blared, people hurried toward their own destinations, their own dramas, their own moments of truth. The Chen family stood together on the sidewalk, an awkward cluster of people trying to figure out what came next. What happens now? Diana asked. Now, Elena said, we all go home. Marcus figures out his next steps. I go back to my apartment. And next week, we try this again. Maybe coffee. Something casual. Something where we actually talk to each other like human beings. I'd like that, her mother said. Me too, Diana added. Marcus just nodded. He looked destroyed, but also relieved. The mask had cracked. The performance was over. Whatever happened next, at least it would be real. Elena, he said as she turned to go. Thank you for giving me a chance to make this right. Don't thank me yet. You still have to do the hard part. I know. But at least now I'm not doing it alone. At least now I'm not pretending. She smiled at him, her golden brother, her tormentor, her family. Welcome to the real world, Marcus. It's scary, but it's honest. And that's worth something. Elena hailed a cab, and as she climbed in, she looked back one more time. They were all watching her. Her family, flawed and human, and finally seeing her. Where to? The driver asked. Elena gave him her address, then sat back against the worn seat. She still had the folder. She still had the power to destroy Marcus if he didn't follow through. But somehow, she didn't think she'd need to use it. He'd seen his own weakness tonight. He'd faced his own truth. And that was a heavier burden than anything she could impose on him. Her phone buzzed. A text from Diana. I meant what I said. I'm sorry. Let's get coffee next week. Just us. Sisters. Another text from her mother. I love you, Elena. I've always loved you. I just didn't know how to show it. Let me learn. And finally, from her father. You're the bravest person I know. I'm proud of you. I should have said it years ago. Elena read the messages, her vision blurring with tears. Not tears of sadness, tears of relief, of release, of finally being. Epilogue. 6 months later. The coffee shop in Brooklyn was Elena's favorite. Small, independent, the kind of place that served art on the walls and didn't judge you for sitting with a laptop for hours. She sat at her usual table, working. Her laptop screen showed financial spreadsheets, bank statements, transaction records. But these weren't Marcus's. These belonged to someone else. Another case, another investigation. After that night at Les Bernardins, word had spread. Quietly, through networks of lawyers and accountants and people who needed to know. Elena Chen, who could follow money like a bloodhound, who understood fraud better than most certified investigators, who worked cheap because she didn't need fancy offices or expensive overhead. The freelance forensic accounting business had started almost by accident. A lawyer friend of Diana's had called, asking for help on a case. Then another. Now Elena had a waiting list. She had purpose. She had a steady income. She had respect earned through skill and determination. And most importantly, she had herself back. Her phone rang. Marcus. They talked now, regularly. Real conversations about real things. Hey, she answered. Hey, just wanted to let you know the restitution is complete. Final payment went through today. Marcus had confessed everything to Hawthorne and Associates. They'd been furious, devastated, betrayed. But Marcus's honesty and his willingness to make it right had saved him from prison. Barely. He'd been disbarred, of course, had to sell the house, the car, everything. He was working now as a paralegal at a small firm, rebuilding from the ground up. How does it feel? Elena asked. Terrifying? Liberating? Both. He paused. I'm teaching a class at the community center. Legal basics for people who can't afford lawyers. It's not much, but it's real. It helps people. I'm proud of you. That means a lot coming from you. His voice was thick with emotion. You saved my life, you know? That night, if you'd turned me in without giving me a chance to make it right, you would have survived. You're stronger than you think. I learned that from you. They talked for a few more minutes, then said goodbye. Elena went back to her spreadsheets, following the money trail that would expose another fraud, help another victim, bring another truth to light. The door chimed. Diana walked in, her baby daughter Sophia in a carrier on her chest. She waved, ordered a decaf latte, and joined Elena at the table. How's my favorite forensic accountant? Diana asked, settling into her chair with the careful movements of a new mother. Busy. How's my favorite new mom? Exhausted? Amazing? Terrified. Diana smiled. Sophia spit up on Trevor this morning. It was glorious. They laughed together, easy and genuine. These weekly coffee dates had become sacred. Sister time. Honest time. Healing time. Mom wants to know if you're coming to dinner on Sunday. She's making that chicken thing you like. Elena considered. Family dinners were different now. Smaller. More honest. Less performative. They'd all agreed to limit them to once a month, and even then there were ground rules. No comparisons. No judgments. No jokes at anyone's expense. I'll be there. Tell her yes. She'll be happy. She worries about you, you know? I know. But she worries differently now. Like she actually sees me. Diana reached across the table and squeezed Elena's hand. We all see you now, finally. Sophia stirred in her carrier, making small baby noises. Diana adjusted her, cooing softly. I want to raise her differently. I don't want her to grow up thinking she has to be perfect. I don't want her to fear being herself. You will. You're already doing it. Will you help? Will you be the aunt who shows her it's okay to be different? To choose your own path? Elena looked at her niece, this tiny person who would grow up in a different family than the one Elena had known. A family that had learned, through pain and revelation, to value truth over performance, authenticity over perfection. I'd be honored, Elena said. The final truth. That evening, Elena walked home through Brooklyn as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Her phone was full of messages. New clients, friends making plans, her parents asking about her day. The loneliness that had defined so much of her life had lifted, replaced by connection built on honesty rather than pretense. She thought about that night at Les Bernardins, how terrified she'd been, how angry, how ready to burn everything down just to feel seen. She'd walked into that restaurant with a folder full of evidence and a heart full of rage, expecting to destroy her family and walk away. Instead, something more complex had happened. Something harder. Something real. She'd shown them the truth. About Marcus, yes, but more importantly, about themselves. About their cruelty, their blindness, their willingness to sacrifice one person's dignity to maintain their own illusions. And in being confronted with that truth, they had to make a choice. They could have doubled down, could have circled the wagons, called her a liar, cut her off completely. But they hadn't. They looked at themselves, really looked, and seen what they'd become. And they'd chosen to change. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a fairy tale. Her father still sometimes slipped into old patterns of criticism. Her mother still worried too much about appearances. Marcus was still rebuilding his life one painful step at a time. Diana still struggled with the programming of perfection she'd inherited. But they tried. They all tried. And that was enough. Elena walked home to her apartment building, a modest brownstone walk-up that she'd once been embarrassed to have her family visit. Now she saw it clearly, not as a symbol of failure, but as home. Her space, her life, her choice. Inside, she made dinner, nothing fancy, just pasta and salad, and settled on her couch with her laptop. She had a new case starting tomorrow, a small business owner who suspected his partner of embezzlement. Elena would do what she did best: follow the money, uncover the truth, bring light to darkness. She'd found her calling in the wreckage of her family's dysfunction. She'd discovered that the skills she'd developed to survive them were valuable, marketable, important. But more than that, she'd learned something crucial about strength and dignity. She'd learned that you don't prove your worth by destroying your enemies. You prove it by refusing to let them define you, by standing up, speaking truth, and giving people the chance to choose better. Some would take that chance, some wouldn't. But the offering itself, the decision to demand respect rather than settle for contempt, that's where the real power lived. Her phone buzzed one more time. A text from her father, reading an article about forensic accounting. Made me think of you. Fascinating work. Let's talk about it on Sunday. Elena smiled and typed back, "I'd like that." She set down her phone and looked around her apartment, at the art on her walls, some of it her own paintings from years ago, those terrible abstracts that her family had mocked, at the small successes and quiet victories that made up her life, at the evidence of a path chosen authentically, even when that choice had cost her everything. The folder from Le Bernardin sat on her bookshelf now, a reminder. She kept it not as a weapon, but as a symbol, proof that she'd been strong enough to hold truth in her hands and use it wisely, not for destruction, but for transformation. Outside her window, Brooklyn hummed with life. Somewhere out there, other families were sitting down to dinner. Other people were fighting their own battles for dignity and recognition. Other truths were waiting to be revealed. Elena opened her laptop and began reviewing tomorrow's case files. There was work to do, justice to pursue, truth to uncover. But tonight, in this moment, she allowed herself to simply sit with satisfaction. She'd walked into that restaurant as the family disappointment, the cautionary tale, the acceptable target. She'd walked out as herself, flawed, complex, valuable, and finally seen. The humiliation she'd endured hadn't broken her. It had forged her. And in the moment when she could have broken them in return, she'd chosen something better. She'd chosen to show them who she really was and demand they see it. That was the real victory. Not revenge, not destruction, but recognition, truth, the reclaiming of dignity that had been stolen one dinner, one joke, one dismissal at a time. And now, sitting in her small apartment with her pasta and her laptop and her hard-won peace, Elena Chen knew something her family was still learning. Success isn't measured by title or salary or meeting someone else's expectations. Success is having the courage to be yourself, even when that self disappoints everyone around you. Success is standing up and saying, "I am enough," when the world tells you you're not. Success is choosing truth over performance, authenticity over approval, dignity over acceptance. She'd been called a failure for 15 years, but she'd never failed at the thing that mattered most: being Elena, fully, honestly, unapologetically Elena. And in the end, that was the only success that counted. The moral. The chandeliers of Le Bernardin had sparkled that night, reflecting a family's perfect facade. By the time Elena left, that facade had shattered. But what emerged from the wreckage wasn't destruction. It was possibility. Humiliation can be a crucible. It can burn away everything false, everything performed, everything pretend. And if you survive it with your truth intact, if you refuse to let shame define you, if you hold on to your dignity, even when everyone around you tries to strip it away, then you become unbreakable. True strength isn't in the ability to hurt those who've hurt you. It's in the wisdom to know when to reveal truth, how to use power, and why dignity matters more than revenge. Elena had learned this lesson the hard way, through years of being diminished and dismissed, but she'd learned it completely. And in teaching it to her family, in showing them that their perfect son was flawed, Their disappointing daughter was brilliant. Their neat categories were lies. She'd given them all a chance to be real. Some gifts look like destruction. Some truths feel like weapons. But in the right hands, at the right moment, truth becomes something else entirely. Liberation. For everyone. In the crystal silence that follows revelation, we discover who we really are. Not the roles we play, not the expectations we fulfill, but the truth we carry inside. Sharp, uncomfortable, and ultimately, the only thing that sets us free.